Hi, it's Andrew Henderson from Mermaid's Purse. Dear law student, you asked me the other day, should I get a paralegal job? It's one of the most common questions I get from law students. I know from talking to law students like you tell one another that you have to get a job as a paralegal during law school to even think about getting a job at graduation. I've read Oz Law and Law School on Reddit. I know it's a common argument. Distressingly, when I ask law students where this idea comes from about getting a paralegal job, they usually say my friend, my partner, my friend's partner's friend, or at least any combination of those things, said I need to. I know it sometimes comes from the shiny new lawyer at a careers day at the law school. It might even come from the notice board in the law school foyer. All those people you've spoken to may or may not have gone down that path, but it's a truism that a single experience can't be translated to a whole cohort. So, use your common sense, and to use a lawism, it's circumstantial evidence at best. Give it the appropriate weight. The prospects for law students aren't that bad. We know that Australian law schools produce about 7,500 graduates like you every year. But that doesn't mean that every single one of them is going to be looking for a job as a lawyer. We know that some of you have decided not to be a lawyer at some point in law school. Some of you even started law school not intending to be a lawyer at all. And we know that some of you will decide not to be a lawyer after you graduate. But we also know that employment prospects for law graduates are pretty good. The 2019 Graduate Outcomes Survey tells us that more than 75% of you had a full-time job within 12 months of graduating. It also tells us that more than 90% of graduates in 2016 had full-time jobs by 2019, with 80% in roles that needed a university degree. I know that might sound like cold comfort, and I can imagine you thinking, but what if I'm one of the 25%, or even one of the 10%, and how many of that 75% didn't have a paralegal job? That's all possible. And work experience is always useful, regardless of whether you want to be a lawyer or a circus performer. But before you join the paralegal parade, here's some things to think about. Being a law student is hard work. Look, I'm not really telling you something you don't already know, but most universities will tell you that you should be spending at least 3 hours studying for every 1 hour of lecture or tutorial time. A quick calculation means that your law degree, or both degrees if you're doing a double, should take up at least 36 hours a week, if not more. Yeah, I know, stop giggling. That's the ideal. But even if you spend half that time, that's still the same as a part-time job. You could fill the other half of your week with a paralegal job, but that assumes you don't have to work to pay rent, put food on the table, fill the car. Look, ramen is okay, but do you really want ramen every night? That's your work commitments. What about your social life? What about your family? You need to be healthy as a law student. Existing on ramen and Red Bull isn't going to do much for your physical health, but your mental health is important as well. Connecting with family, friends and outside interests is a way of keeping mentally healthy. It's been more than 10 years since Courting the Blues on mental health amongst law students and in the legal profession was published, and it found high levels of psychological distress and risk of depression in the law students and practicing lawyers who participated when compared with other people in the Australian community. There's been lots of good work since then, but the high pressure nature of the legal profession means that it's still a risk. Going out into the profession while you're already under pressure and feeling stressed puts you at risk, and adding another distressed lawyer to the profession isn't the best outcome for anyone. So you've decided to get a job as a paralegal. Great! Look, I can understand why you might want to. And again, it can be an advantage. But before you start applying, here's some things to think about. Firstly, what do you want out of the experience? This is really important. Getting a job on your CV is not the answer. Being clear about why you're looking for a paralegal job can help you and a potential employer in a lot of ways. There are also some niche areas of the law where there is only a small number of roles. If you can explain your interest and how a particular employer fits within that, it can help build a CV to support you getting into that area of practice. Having that clear statement of intention also helps with writing a kick-ass covering letter that can help an employer to see how you might fit into their practice. Okay, so congratulations, you've got a paralegal job. But there's also some more things to think about. Loyalty is a valuable resource. Spend yours wisely. You've planned your time and your objectives, you've got your paralegal job, congratulations. You're conscientious and keen, you want to make a good impression on the firm that's employing you. But if you have a clear picture in your mind about the objective in applying to and working for a firm, then making a good impression is essential. But unfortunately, things don't always pan out the way we hope. Having a role that isn't getting you closer to your goals is a danger. Being conscientious though, you feel you need to stay or risk getting a bad reference. Remember, having a paralegal job is about gaining experience. It's going to help you find the job that you want after graduation. That's why you applied for it. It's like an apprenticeship. If you're not learning anything, though, why are you even there? There might be lots of reasons why you're not learning anything. Some of them are understandable. For example, you may work in a busy firm, the principal doesn't have available time to work with you. But I've also seen paralegals working purely in administrative roles. Answering phones, internal filing, picking up dry cleaning, buying stationery. Look, I love a trip to office work as much as the next person, but I wouldn't say it's building professional skills. You might hear people say, oh well, that's what paralegals do. We all had that experience. No, it's not. No, we didn't. And if we did, then we got the wrong experience. Sure, the snazzy firm merch might be attractive. Sure, the buffet might be a highlight. But remember, this is your career we're talking about. But before you answer no to this question, take a minute to think about why you're not learning anything. Have you checked your objective? Have you focused on the right thing? You might find, for example, that you've learned a lot about personal injury law, but that wasn't your objective. Law school has trained you to focus on substance. It's really easy to get caught up in the substance of what you're doing. If your objective was to learn skills, though, is that where you put your focus? If not, stop and reflect on whether there might be something you can do to change that focus. Is it taking me anywhere? Look, one of the things that law students often say is that they took a paralegal job because they thought it would lead to an offer of a graduate job. Like any other job, think about if the firm you are working for is really somewhere that you could see yourself working 1, 2 or 3 or even 5 years from now. If it is, great. But you might want to check that your assumption about what will happen in the future is right. Your loyalty is valuable. If you've decided that this might be the firm for you, it might be a good time to think about sitting down to talk to your principal about what might happen in the future. That can be confronting for both you and your principal. Don't spring it on them one day in the lift. Think about making time and forewarning them that this is a question that you'd like to ask them. It's an excellent opportunity to get feedback on how you're going and things that might be worth focusing on. What's the worst that can happen? Finding out that there might not be a job at the end is valuable information to have as early as possible to allow you to do some future planning. But remember, am I fitting it all in? Remember we talked about being healthy and about how being a full-time law student's hard? As a law teacher, I can tell which students did their assignment at 3 a.m. in the morning. I can see law students falling asleep in a lecture theatre. I can also tell which students were stressed. To put it bluntly, if your paralegal job means that you fail classes, what was the paralegal job for? It might be time to think about going. Asking yourself these questions at the start and during your paralegal experience can help you to plan some milestones, but it might also bring into sharp focus some things that are really making you uncomfortable. I often have law students tell me that they can't leave or go without having another paralegal role lined up. The profession's small and it will look bad, they say. But if it's not meeting your objective, isn't teaching you anything, and it isn't taking you anywhere, what are you doing? In another professional life where I read CVs and I interviewed graduates, yes, the profession is small, but that means your potential employer also probably knows who you worked for. They can probably guess why you might have left. But even if they don't, being able to explain your objectives, what your experience taught you, and how that has led you to apply to them makes for an impressive interview.